Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sensational Six Live. We welcome everybody from CSL Palm Desert and parts unknown. I'm pretty sure we've got somebody up in Canada who is a regular watcher of ours. So, welcome, Lesia, if you're out there. Well, we're delighted to be with you as always, and we have a wonderful show planned for you, which will be led by Reverend Cheryl this week. But before we dive in, we're just going to do an invocation, and that is to set the tone and get us all present and centered in this moment. So I invite you to just take a deep breath and close your eyes if that feels comfortable. And then just settle your heart into this moment that is so filled with wisdom and love and aha moments. This moment of connection that exists beyond time and space. I know that we are connected to each and every person who is watching here today, that there is just that one energy, that one brilliant mind that exists. And I engage that in this moment. I am conscious of it and I bring it forward consciously into this beautiful show today. And I am just so grateful. I'm so grateful for each and every person who is watching. And I'm grateful for the fabulous five who I am so connected with and love so much. I just enjoy this dance today, releasing any attachment, knowing that it unfolds absolutely perfectly. And together we just say, and so it is. Woohoo. Well, as you can see, I'm very excited this morning. And one of the ways we start each week is to ask a question of the six of us. And Cheryl came up with this week's question, and it's a way for you to get to know us a little bit better. A way to introduce ourselves to you that in case you haven't been watching, or even if you have, you'll learn something new about us. So this week's question is, who would you most enjoy, alive or transitioned, having dinner with and a conversation? So that's a great question. And I always answer these questions of that call me to the past the same way, which is my mom. My mom is always my answer. So y'all know that by now if you've been watching. So I'm going to give a different answer today. Know that it's my mom, but I'm going to go to my second answer because it might be a little more interesting. First of all, I'd throw a dinner party. I don't believe that we're limited to one person, so getting rid of that idea. I would love to have some historical figures and people who are around today, and I would certainly invite the Sensational Six to be part of that. Ernest Holmes, definitely. Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, uh, Dr. James, and I think I would love to have some like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton. So I just have a big old party with people throughout history and now, and I'd love to hear that conversation. And oh, let's bring Plato in. Yeah, so I'm not an either or person, as you can tell. I'm a little bit of I want a little of this and a little of that. So my answer is big party and philosophers and religious figures and definitely Ernest Holmes in there and all my partners here at the Sensational Six. So I'm going to pass it on to Reverend Dale to tell us who she'd like to have dinner and conversation with.
Thank you, Reverend Lori. Something I love about you, Reverend Lori, is that you don't allow a question to restrict you to only certain options. You blow it up and say, okay, this is how I'm going to do it. And I love that about you. I had sort of a reverse thing than you did, Reverend Lori, because at first I just immediately went to famous people. And I thought, if it were to be a famous person, I would love to have dinner with Joseph Campbell. And if you don't know who he is, he wrote The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he pretty much combined anthropology, psychology, and spirituality into one yummy package, and studied all over the world, and just brought these universal stories that tell the story about us on the deeper psychic level. And I would just love to ask him questions, because I think that he had such an amazing mind. That would be a very long dinner, because I would have a ton of questions. However, when I went to the flip side of that, I realized that really who I would like to have dinner with is my mom, because she made her transition a couple of years ago. And actually 12 or 16 years before that, she had a really massive stroke, and there was really poor communication with her in the last part of her life. And I would love to sit down with her and ask her what that experience was for her, and how she felt, and what she was thinking, and what she was aware of. And most importantly, what is the afterlife for her? That I would love to know. So that's who I would really love to have a dinner with. So on that note, I'm going to pass it over to Reverend Gail.
Thank you so much, Reverend Dale. And boy, Reverend Lori, I also loved your invitation. I think we all received one. And I'd like to add your beloved husband, Don, to your list, if I could, this morning. So I did love hearing about your amazing dinner conversations. And through the haze of what is likely a challenged camera sensor for me on my computer today, you might be able to see that I'm Reverend Gail Morton. So we're going to actually talk about symbology today. So the words and other symbols with which we communicate, that's what I mean by symbology. And my rather hazy sharing today is a great example of symbology. Exactly, clean it all off, as my voice and my choice of words today are going to have to suffice. So it was really hard for me to choose one person, but because you all know I'm a rule follower, I did go ahead and choose one person. And I decided I would love to have dinner with Thomas Jefferson. And he was our third president of the United States, and of course, the statesman who composed the Declaration of Independence. So my choice was made around what's always struck me about Thomas Jefferson. I've read a lot about him, and that was his foundational belief in the moral goodness of people. It was just that simple. And yes, I said belief, because this was his truth with a capital T. And it was from this steadfast belief, this firm foundation, that he committed his broad vision for this country to paper, the Declaration of Independence. So my interest in connecting with Thomas Jefferson actually comes from my sense that most of what we're navigating through as a civilization right now has a common thread running through it. And I think it's called freedom. And equally, my sense is that the Declaration of Independence is arguably one of the finest defenses of freedom ever written. Although we all might argue with its application and even its interpretation at times, it's hard to argue with the words that all men are created equal in rights, regardless of their birth, their wealth, or their status. I just love that. So given that the United States was founded based upon people valuing both political and religious freedom, at dinner I would ask him today, how would he see our Constitution guiding us? And what would he say to our leaders and to us as citizens today? And I have to add, on a lighter note, since our conversation would be over dinner, my meal would have to include ice cream. For I am very, very grateful that in addition to drafting the Declaration of Independence, that Thomas Jefferson actually introduced ice cream to our country. So, enough for my hazy cave. Reverend Brad, what say you?
That was great, Reverend Gail. That was great. Wonderful contributions of that man. And I see your haze as one of those angelic hazes they used to put over actresses decades ago, to when they do the close-up shots and it was all misty and angelic. That's how I get to see you today, beyond normal. The person who does the topic for our session each Wednesday also picks this question. So I always try and go from whatever my first thing was, and it was really cool. As soon as I read it, I instantly thought of Katharine Hepburn and having lunch with her at Tavern on the Green in Central Park. Now, it could have been because the day before my prayer partner quoted her, so it was in my subconscious percolating around. But I just thought, what a fascinating woman who had done so much and been with so many people I started to say literally and figuratively, so I guess I won't say that since I just did. But just out there in the world, and I love the Tabernacle Green. I went there years ago with my family, and we sat for hours in the view and the lush and the garden-like setting. So I could feel that'd be kind of a fun, whimsical kind of thing to do. So Reverend William, who would you like to have break bread with?
Unmute William.
Gosh, I pulled a Cheryl. Yes, I love it. I would have to say that Thomas Troward, that man's mind, his verbiage, how he talked, how he wrote was long-winded, but he was an absolutist, and I resonate with that. I like how he came up with his ideas or realized the truth of life and through nature and through observation. And I find myself constantly, every single day, just observing everything, and these ideas and these aha moments just pop into my head. So to be able to break bread with him would be a definite highlight. I bet the guy's got a wicked sense of humor. For some reason, I just sense that about him. He's going to be just a wicked mind to mess with, and it'd be a lot of fun. But I like Reverend Laurie's idea. You can't just have one. You got to have a garden party. Oh, yes, there are so many people, but at the top of the list would definitely have to be him. So actually, now we have Reverend Cheryl. So let us know, Reverend Cheryl.
Okay, for me, for my ever since I was a child, I have been absolutely, totally enthralled with Cary Grant. So I just thought he was such a great actor, and I know probably in the big scheme of things, he wasn't considered probably to be one of the best, but there's just something about the way he presented himself and the way he held himself. But the reason I wrote the question the way I did is because Lori is right. You could have multiples from this question. You know, who? Well, who could be a number of people? So the other person, which would be absolutely insane dinner party, would be, I would love to have dinner with a man, Jesus. And I would just like William said, what would he think about what has happened to his teaching? How would he perceive it? Joe, our pastor, one time said if Jesus came back to earth right now and saw what we've done with his teaching, I think he'd be pissed, but it just depends upon, how you look at it. But to me, I would love to see and actually experience that mind with Cary Grant and Jesus. Wouldn't that be a dinner party for you there? One of each, right? So anyway, that's my take on it. And I think it would be a great dinner. But so today's topic is from the Fifth Agreement. And the Fifth Agreement is be skeptical, but learn how to listen. And what I mean by that is skeptical. We've been taught in our teaching that doubt is not a good thing. You don't doubt yourself. You don't doubt what's going on. But what Don Miguel Ruiz has given us is doubt is a masterful, powerful tool for changing our thinking. You start looking at what you believe and you start questioning it if you doubt it. So it's being skeptical about everything that you've been taught. And in the in the Fifth Agreement, one of the things he says is that each one of us are here by divine right, that we are here for a purpose. And it's not like we are predestined to be any one thing. It's just that we are here for a purpose. We're not just frivolously thrown on this planet to just exist. We were given free will. So we have the opportunity to create whatever we want in our lives. But what happens is when we're first born, we're these pure little spirits that have absolutely no beliefs around anything. And so what do we do when we're children? We know what we like. We know what we don't like. Broccoli. We know that we want to play. We want to experience. We want to love. We want to do all these things. But as we acquire language and we start learning, we start getting all of these beliefs put onto us. Not not in a bad intention kind of way. It's more that our parents want us to fit into society. They want us to fit into their belief system. They want us to fit in as a person in any situation that we're in. So they try and teach us what they know. But at some point, as you become an adult, you have to question these beliefs to become authentic. And so we spend our entire lives looking for the truth that we were born with, the truth that we were born into. And so be skeptical, because that is a powerful thing. To be skeptical about what you believe means that you step back and you stop putting judgment, you stop putting your opinion, you stop putting any kind of thoughts around what somebody else is doing or what you're doing. You have to step back and try to come back to that authentic place that's already there within you. And so the power of doubt, that is the one tool that we have that we can change our beliefs. Because what do we say in Science Mind? Oh, change your thinking, change your life. Change your thoughts, change your life. Change what's coming out of your mouth and change your life. But then people will say to me, well, it sounds easy, but it's not that easy. And the way that you do it and the way you can start doing it is to start doubting everything that you hear and everything that you've been told. And it's not to say that you throw out everything, but you make sure that it is authentically what you are. That belief absolutely expresses this beautiful God spirit that you are right here on earth. And so the second part of this is learn how to listen. And when you listen, when you truly listen to someone without forming an opinion or making a judgment or sitting there thinking how you're going to rebut this, whatever they've said, if you just listen, then you will hear beyond their story, beyond the words that they are saying, because each and every one of us have our own story, the story that we've created that is who we think we are. But that's it. Start questioning that story and start looking for that being, that authentic person that you are, and listen. And don't listen to that little tyrant that's in your head that tells you all the time, oh, you're less than, you're this, you're that, you're that, you're that. These are all just lies that you're telling yourself, because the truth is that you are a spiritual being having a human expression. So if you start going back to the spirit, to the truth of who you are, and stop listening to anyone else, what they have to say, respect their words, respect what they say, but don't take it as your own. Stay authentic, stay within yourself. And so I'd like to open up to the rest of the panel, and somebody just jump right in.
So Cheryl, that was an amazing, not only amazing choice of topic, thank you so much, but you were so clear in your explanation. So what a great platform for all of us to jump from. So the fifth agreement, be skeptical, as Cheryl said, but learn to listen. And I quite honestly had never read the fifth agreement. The Four Agreements is one of my absolute favorite books. So when I started looking into it, for me, this was really repeating in so many ways the words of Dr. Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of religious science and the author of The Science of Mind Teachings. Holmes cautioned that we must always stay open at the top. And what he meant by open at the top, I believe, was always stay open to the truth beyond anything else. And he said, be aware of all avenues, even if the one that you're on right now seems right. Don't be afraid to look at everything another way or to take another path. So the fifth agreement also says, learn to listen. And I think what Ruiz meant by that is that listening is not just listening to understand, which is really important, but it's being as completely present to whatever is before you with all of who you are. That is really learning to listen. What really struck me in the fifth agreement is that Mark Nepo could also have written this book. That's what it sounded like to me, was The 7,000 Ways to Listen by Mark Nepo. because in this book, he offers an interesting view of this fifth agreement. First, he shares his own statement on staying open at the top. Nepo calls it staying close to what is sacred and giving up what no longer works. Doesn't that sound familiar? And then he also shares a story about a Nigerian linguist who once told him about all the living languages on the earth. And he said there were 7,000 ways to speak, to which Nepo replied, well, if there are 7,000 ways to speak, there must be 7,000 ways to listen. And have you reached the 7,000 mark yet? So I'm curious with this topic today, what are your ways to listen? Share that with us in the comments. And think about it. Have you reached the 7,000 mark yet? I know I haven't. Thank you. My cohorts.
Powerful, Reverend Cheryl and Reverend Gail. Man, I get to hang out with these folks. I'm so blessed. A couple of quick comments. You know, the panelists can't see your comments, folks, but I know all of you wonderful watchers can see each other's. But some of the comments about having a chat with was Joan of Arc, Leonardo da Vinci, and any great explorer that they could kind of sit with and chat with. I'm going to use a couple of media references regarding listening. One was often the Hallmark channels in the background in my home. And there was a dad who was giving advice to his teenage son. And his teenage son had his best friend get injured and couldn't get a scholarship, et cetera, right? You can see how that story goes. So he said, I don't know what to do. And his dad said, just listen. The next scene is the boy in the hospital with his friend saying, well, you know, you can try next year and you can do this and this, that. That's not listening. When I'm supporting a student or a client, I'll say the first thing, if you're not clear how to listen in any situation, one, shut up. And the other is, don't have a sentence come out of your mouth unless it has a question mark. Two really clean things to really be present. And another great one I love is to be present in the moment and to be impeccable with your word and almost like figuring out what your truth is. Remember at the movie Contact, where Jodie Foster is at this congressional panel, and there's no tangible proof that she went off for, you know, a number of minutes, but she thought she was gone for hours chatting with an alien that showed up as her dad on another planet, blah, blah, blah. And I remember the most profound statement is she says, with every core of her being, she feels her experience was true. But as a scientist and as just a person in life, she has to be open that possibly it wasn't, and it's just in her imagination. So, you know, there's a book about our founder, Ernest Holmes, about open at the top. That's profoundly open at the top. So for me, it means anybody in front of me, regardless of what they're going through, and I want to be a better listener. In that listening, I can hear more of what their picture is, as opposed to the personality of Brad, assuming I know what the issue is and how to help them and how to fix it. Who else has some wondrous, amazing words?
Well, I shouldn't judge myself harshly. As I said, I don't know if they're wondrous or amazing, but I'm not doing that self-negation anymore. You know, I always love to bring stuff into present day, how our topics are showing up. And I think right now, a lot of people are just screaming their beliefs at each other, and everybody's just saying, I'm right, and my belief is right, and you're wrong. And I love Cheryl's topic because I think it's really calling us to examine ourselves and are we listening? And just because we've built up a belief about quote unquote people who think like that or represent that, we've got to dissolve that and question our own perceptions and our own judgments of others, because we're never going to achieve unity and oneness if we're standing so stiffly in our belief systems and not giving other people a chance to speak their truth and to really listen to them. I mean, don't we want people to listen to us that way? I always ask myself, don't I want the same type of respect to be heard from my belief if I'm trying to engage in some sort of working healing with some sort of relationship. So I think this topic is so relevant for us right now to really, stop having enemies and listen to people and what they believe, and have compassion. If you don't understand why they might think a certain way, open your heart and find out, because the answers are there. We're all one. We all have the same stuff within ourselves, and to start really seeing that in others, that whole namaste thing that we talk about, to see the God within everybody, regardless of what their beliefs are. And we have to really go beyond that. So I love, Cheryl, that you brought this topic to us today. And I think the fifth agreement, it goes like you kind of broach the subject. It's examining our own beliefs, because we get so lodged in them. Examining ours, see how they aren't serving us, and examine what we're believing, what we're taking in as gospel from the outside as well. We in self mastery, which is a class that CSL teaches, and we teach it at our center once a year. We're exposed to the work of Byron Katie, and she does this whole process of kind of digging into your stuff, and it's called the work. And I love one of her questions that she asks is this really true? And I love that question, to ask ourselves, even about our beliefs. Is this really true? Or what I'm listening to that I'm buying without questioning, is it really true? These questions that allow us to really dig into what is really true for us, and what we're just taking at face value, which really deserves a little more skepticism, a little more evaluation before we buy it hook, line, and sinker. So I'm grateful, Reverend Cheryl, that you brought this to us today. It's a juicy topic. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a wonderful topic, and anybody who knows me knows I'm all about asking good questions. And this really is an invitation to do that. And it's not about blowing up everything you think you know, but it's about systematically just shining a light of consciousness on it and holding it gently and lightly. Because don't we get kind of tight sometimes with what we believe? We hold on to it so tightly, and we're not even really sure it's true, but we believe it. So then we feel obligated to defend it. And I think we see a lot of that happening in the world, as Dale said. People are getting tight. They're feeling like they've got to defend something, and they may not even be sure it's true. And so, there are things that are true in the objective world in a small t sense, and then there's the large T truth, right? So I'm always asking, like, well, okay, is this true with a small t and objective reality? Most of the time, I'm not sure. Because we're taking in so much information, it takes a lot of effort to be discerning, and we're not programmed that way. So that's to give ourselves a little bit of a break. It's not our natural programming. Our natural programming is to run from our subconscious mind, which wants to take in information and file it. Have an assumption, have draw a conclusion, and put it in a file that's already existing, I might add, because that's just easier. And that's what our subjective or subconscious mind is constantly doing. So we need to shine the light down in there and bring it to consciousness, bring it to our conscious mind and look at it and say, all right, is this even true? That's a great question. Does it serve me? Does it serve others? Because even if it is true, guess what? There's a bunch of small t truths out there. There's so many choices. And are we choosing the ones that are in service to our own heart and to the heart of the world? Is it in service to that, you know, God essence everywhere? Is that what we're engaging? And then, of course, that brings us to capital T truth, which is always way more interesting than the facts on the ground. So, yeah, just by asking good questions, as everybody said before, is this a reflection of who I choose to be in the world? Is this the thing I want to engage with? It doesn't even matter if it's really true, does it? Because there are a lot of different truths out there. So it's discerning which truth do I engage that has me being a contribution to others and keeps me open at the top and in that divine flow, because things change very rapidly. I mean, this is an evolving we are an evolving energy, and we're always evolving towards greater and greater good. Now we can go kicking and screaming, we're going, or we can just let go and breathe. And I think so much of what we get attached to just doesn't matter. I think we've lost sight of that. In our society, we have gotten so attached to whether it's politics or whatever it is, we forgot what truly matters. And if we get to that nugget, that truth at the heart of everybody, we all just want to love and be loved. That's it. That's what everybody wants. I truly, truly believe that. And so when I engage in that truth, I'm looking at people differently. I'm looking through different eyes and I'm really listening. I'm listening for that opportunity to be in love with them instead of worrying about all the stuff that just doesn't matter that much.
I'd like to jump in here. One of the things about listening is you are showing respect for the other person, for their story. Because their story, whatever they're telling you, is from their perspective and from their belief system. But you don't have to judge that. You just have to have respect for what they're saying. And so, respecting anything that another person says without judgment, and even if it refers to you. Wow, that's a tough one. What if somebody like your parent or somebody says, well, you always do this, or you have always, and I've seen you do, what they're doing is they're painting you with their brush. They're painting their image of what they think you are. But the truth of the matter is nobody knows who you are except for you. When you're speaking to other people about your story, which is we are all, as Don Miguel Ruiz calls it, we are all artists. And what we're doing is we're painting our story and our creation. And it's all painted from that basic belief system that we have. And so isn't it time to maybe express yourself in a different way by first just respecting what people say, but not incorporating it into your belief system? Just respecting that that's where they're coming from. And then even if they are trying to, as I said, paint you with their brush, just listen to them and know it's not the truth, but this is their story, just like you have your story. So it's about doubting what other people say, but not without respect, not disrespecting them, but just knowing that this is the story that's based on their belief system. And I had an interesting thing happen right after I sent this topic in to our moderator, Jeff. I had lunch at a restaurant and all the tables were full because, we're eating outside right now and everything. And this couple said, oh, come sit with us. We have an extra chair. And I sat down and it was really something I hadn't done in a long time because it was one of my triggers, that I was raised in Pentecostal Assembly of God. And it was very, very harsh, very, judgmental kind of religion. And so I thought I had worked through all those triggers about when people start telling me, well, this person proceeded to tell me that if I didn't take Jesus as my personal savior, I'm going to hell. And then told me I needed to read my Bible, which I've read the Bible, trust me, numerous times. And then just all of this stuff that used to would have been, my head would have been on fire, man. I'm ready for you now, buddy, But I just sat and listened. And at the end, when he was leaving, I was still eating. I actually lost my appetite. I left right after that. But right after that, what hit me was that I just listened to what he had to say. And at the end, I said, it's like a mountain with a lot of different paths going up. We choose the path that whatever path it is that takes us to that truth, that one knowing, that one power. And this was his truth. And at the end, I said, thank you for sharing all that with me. I respect how you feel. Wow. I couldn't have done that 3 years ago. And I was a practitioner then. I still had those buttons and those things. But what I was doing is I was taking personally before what he was saying, and that what his belief was does not wash onto me. I just stay back and listen. And at the end, I saw that this man had a very powerful belief in God. He was just taking a different path to get there. And So I have to, I respected that. And it really threw him when I said that. I said, I really respect how you feel. And he was, ready to, start the argument again. And I was like, but I said, I can see why that is real comfort to you. And so that's part of what this is. When you just learn to listen, it doesn't wash over you, it doesn't affect you, it just moves into a new understanding. And what if everybody just listened to what another person's belief was and we just didn't automatically say, oh, you're wrong, you've got to do it this way, And even when they're trying to do that to you, if you could just sit there and listen and hear and see the spiritual being that they are. That was so powerful for me. Somebody else jump in here.
So Cheryl, I absolutely loved your story because it beautifully illustrates the fifth agreement, being skeptical and remembering to listen. That was a great example of both. And as you guys are aware, whenever I have a topic, I always like to ask myself, how to use this? How do I use being skeptical and remembering to listen? I like to have tools that I can use around any of these, statements. So what I thought about was this. Well, everyone around me, including myself, wants to express their point of view. And how do we do that? By telling stories about our experiences of the world. That's how we communicate. But then, as Lori has said, how do you know which of the stories are true? We're always on that quest for truth, staying open at the top for that truth. Well, one way is committing to the fifth agreement by being skeptical. And that's what these books are written about, is committing to these agreements and to thoroughly explore what symbology people are using in their storytelling. And to do this, you have to be skeptical of what's being communicated. As Cheryl had used, that word that we never try to use in religious science is, being skeptical or doubting. And this means making an agreement. For me, it does. Making agreement with myself to not buy into everything that I hear and to try to look behind these symbols. So when someone communicates a message to you, maybe ask yourself, is this the real truth? Or is this the relative truth? And by doing so, you're going to become open to the truth that lies behind the symbols and the words. For instance, when you hear a personal story, you don't have to blindly agree with the person's point of view. This was Cheryl's example. But as she did, abstain from judgment too. Remember that being skeptical isn't about discarding everything that everyone says. To fully understand what people are communicating, their intentions and their point of view, you also have to learn to listen. And that's the second part of the fifth agreement. So listen. For me, it's practicing listening to how they express symbols while acknowledging that their point of view will be colored by their beliefs. It's all about awareness. And by listening in this way, for me, it's easier to choose how to react or to respond. For instance, I'm probably not going to want to listen closely and internalize someone who's telling me that I'm not smart enough or I'm not good looking enough. By being just a little skeptical, you're better able to discern that what they are communicating is their relative truth and not maybe a real truth that you have to necessarily internalize and respond to. So what about you guys? Any other tools that you've thought about that you might be able to use to apply this fifth agreement?
I'll pop in with a comment and then a question, but Reverend Gail's amazing intuition, because someone did ask, how can I in the moment move to a listening and respectful, et cetera, situation? And Reverend Gail's explanation and sharing on that was perfect. A comment was someone reminding us of Don Miguel Ruiz saying, you express your own divinity by being alive and by loving yourself and others. An additional question that came up is skeptical the same or different from introspective in this context? So they're not available to ask them more details of what they meant. But would someone like to comment about that? Of when you're being skeptical, and introspective.
Well, so far this whole meeting session has been just wonderful insights. And again, Reverend Cheryl, thank you so much for the topic. This is definitely a deep one, but very well thought out and great comments. I would have to say, as everyone was talking, it reminded me of that scene in Men in Black. And if I get it wrong, Reverend Lori, I'm sure she'll let me know what's going on. But it was a scene with Tommy Lee Jones and Will Smith after he found out there's aliens on the planet, and he's sitting at a bench looking out onto the ocean and just in this deep thought. Well, Tommy Lee comes up to him and starts talking to him and goes, 1,000 years ago, everyone knew that the earth was the center of the universe. It was just known. 500 years ago, everyone knew that the earth was flat. Yesterday, you knew that we were the only life in the universe. Imagine what you'll know tomorrow. And things like that are always, I file away in my file cabinet up in my head, and it allows me to see life by being skeptical. And being skeptical isn't, like Reverend Cheryl was saying, isn't a negative thing. It's just being open to the idea of seeing if what you believe is the truth. Because I bet there's a lot of times that something that you believe is something that you've been told, not something that you know. What is it that you actually know about this person or that situation? Or is that based upon something that you've been told? If you can live your life with being skeptical or being open at the top, like we talk about, to be inquisitive, to be that child and ask the questions, the very simple questions. The questions don't have to be big and long and complicated. It just has to be, is this true? And examine the situation. Come up with the answers yourself, what you find inside your heart, what you find within your own circle of what you can deal with. Because what happens on the other side of the planet, again, may not necessarily really truly affect me, because I can only really affect the parameters of where I'm at. Now that energy goes out into infinity, but the first cause is here within my own circle. Allow your life to unfold in that way. Question, be skeptical, but be open and be asking the questions in that loving manner, like we've all talked about. Not from a place of restrictiveness and being scared, but in a way of being open like a flower to accept the rays of light. Come from that standpoint, and you will just start to enjoy life and start to see things in different ways, and start to drop down the walls that you've built around your heart and allow those to come down, and you will find that your life unfolds and becomes more expansive than you could possibly have imagined. And I'd like any one of my cohorts to expand upon that. Thank you.
Another thing that I would like to point out is we're talking about conversations from other people to you, right? Listening to other people, but listen to yourself. As Ruiz says in his book, was that there is a tyrant in our head that wants to knock us down. We let that thinking, those beliefs that we have within ourselves, that I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that, and those are all just beliefs that have been dumped on us. And this tyrant is ruthless. I mean, think about it. You're abusing yourself by using symbols against yourself. Oh, if I had done this, things would be different in my life. If I had, and so it's always just one of those things about shutting down the tyrant. And when you take out these beliefs that I'm too old, no, I'm not. Who said I was too old? The society says I'm old because of my chronological age. Well, I don't feel that way. So what is the truth of who I am? I'm not old. That's how I know it. But it's just like, nobody judges you more than you judge yourself. So this is also not only about listening to other people and their beliefs, but listening to yourself and shutting down that tyrant just by saying, I know this is not true. I mean, all of those things, we could spend hours and hours and hours every day suffering through what we believe is the truth, when the truth is that we are spiritual beings. We are here for a purpose, and that purpose is just to express God magnificently, wonderfully, with love and compassion and service to others. What else could be better than that? That's my take on it. So anybody else want to jump in?
I'm not sure if we really answered the question about the difference between skepticism and introspection. And I think the two work together. Skepticism really is just doubting, questioning. And introspection to me is the next step. It's looking within ourselves and considering why am I skeptical? What do I want to know about this? What do I want to learn? How does this land for me? What are my real beliefs? What really matters? So I think the two have definitely a relationship with each other as we question beliefs inside of ourselves and outside of ourselves. So I think that's really important. And I really liked what you talked about, Reverend William, about looking at stuff with interest and curiosity, because I just, we're so warred up right now. Everybody's just armored up and their beliefs are just, these are my beliefs and I'm right and you're wrong. And we've got so much of that going on right now. And for us to take a pivot in a different direction and say, I'm not going to armor up. I'm going to question, I'm going to listen, I'm going to ask questions within myself and outside of myself, so we can really let the love rise up. I think there's just such a depletion of love with one another right now because we're just in such a strange state. And for us as people who enjoy living a spiritually centered life, this is our call, really, is to break through any kind of stuff within ourselves where we're going into the righteousness and the divisiveness, right, wrong, that kind of thing, to break that open within ourselves and to be able to come with an open heart and an open mind, and let's explore this territory because there's so much for us to learn about each other.
That was beautiful. Thank you. What a perfect answer. Anybody else after Dale?
Lori, your sound isn't working.
Am I on now? Yay. Okay. Sorry about that. I have this little button here, and if I sit on it or move wrong, I need to tape it up or something. It mutes me. I was just thinking of Ernest Holmes' quote, be for something and against nothing. And wow, isn't that an amazing way to walk through life? Then you're never going to argue with anybody. You're going to be for something and against nothing. There's nothing to argue about. I'm for love. That's it. That's it. Love only. Um, that's an amazing and spacious place to be. And I think that's one way we can discern where we are. Are we listening and are we holding things lightly? I like that even better than being skeptical, to hold things lightly. You'll know. Check in with your body. Your body knows. Your cells know. They react completely different to holding something lightly and loving only than they will to being right and to, being against something. That creates a tension in your body. So that's one way that you can check with yourself to see if you're in the place that you want to be in, is just take a breath and check in with your body. How am I experiencing my energy in this conversation? And there's your answer. And then, we just simply adjust. We just simply make adjustments. Okay, let me come back to being, what am I for? I'm for love only. And then that's it.
So with Lori's wonderful words of wisdom, Sensational 6, we are getting close to the end of our session. Brad, are there any final questions that we might be able to answer for our audience today?
No, nothing showing up for comments or questions, but we sure appreciate you all just showing up, period. Hold on a second. Russ quotes Buddha, no self, no problem. That's a good one. And Russ also quotes, rest in peace, ego.
Wow, thank you for sharing those, Brad. Thank you so much. So as we move towards our close, I would love to invite any of my cohorts who would like to give their biggest takeaway on today's fifth agreement to do so. Anyone have a great takeaway?
I learned a ton from my fellow colleagues, and I got a deeper perspective that when I'm looking at something, particularly anything on social media or any kind of news commentation, how can I use what I learned today to know I will never get the whole story behind someone who's sharing? And what can I do to listen from a place of respect and love and kindness and patience? Because when I can listen that way, it helps me inside connect with their inside. And it doesn't matter how awesome or how jerky they're being. There's a deeper level of connection I get to experience. So thank you all for that insight.
Well, I'm taking away from reading this and getting all this ready and everything. There were two things, is that doubt is the most powerful tool that we have in order to become our authentic self, to change the thinking around what we believe. And then the second thing is that listening is the most powerful tool we have for interacting with other people, for respecting them and loving them, is just to let them point whatever their point of view is, and acknowledging that it is their point of view. It doesn't have to be my own, but I respect them no matter what it is that they feel and what they believe. I just have to stay within myself, and then also to shut down the tyrant in my head. So thank you for allowing me to do this today, guys.
Yes, I like this opportunity. So when I tell myself inside my head that I know something about a situation, that's going to be my trigger to actually open up and to reevaluate what I know. It allows me to get into a place of centeredness. It gets me out of my own ego, my own self-righteousness, and allows me to re-examine life so that I can reevaluate what my truth is. So from now on, when I hear in my head, this is what I know, that's going to be my trigger to question it and to be open to new ideas and re-examine it. So that's what I took away from today's session. So thank you all.
One last thing, and I know Lori's going to know this. Dr. James Mellon, our teacher, he says, I don't know anything. I believe that's what it is, Lori. He says, I don't know anything. And
I know nothing.
I know nothing. I know nothing. And that opens that space that Reverend William was talking about. And then he follows it up with saying, what do I need to know? Is that what it is?
I know nothing. Now what can I know?
Now what can I know? Yeah, I think that's a great tool to kind of hit that space we're talking about.
Well, it's just a reminder to hold things lightly. And what really came forward for me today, I'm going to out myself a bit here, as I was talking about this, suddenly I saw all the areas where I was not doing it, where I was getting attached to, is this true? Isn't this true? And putting my focus on that and getting frustrated when what I saw as objective facts, someone else saw as not objective facts. And so just simply having this conversation brought forward where my work needs to be and continue to be, because it's in process. And I like to use the term monkey mind. To me, it's gentler, and I see the little chirp, 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 and it's like non-threatening. It's just like, but my monkey mind does chime in around this. It's because it wants to be right. It wants to know, first of all, knowing, right? I mean, we're uncomfortable when we don't know something. There's a discomfort to that. And I realize for me, when I'm uncomfortable, it's because I don't like confusion, and that's a human trait. That's not just a Lori trait. We are not comfortable with not knowing. And so it's a skill set to be in the not knowing enough so that we become comfortable with it, so that we can stay open. So it is definitely, this is a spiritual practice, and one that is so worthwhile. It really, really is. We would love to hear from all of you, how this shows up for you in the next week. It'd be really great to continue the conversation. If you have some aha moments, either bring them next week for us or email us through the center. We would love to hear how this shows up and continue to have conversation with you. So please do that.
Wow, thank you, Lori. That was a great close in and of itself. So that actually brings us to the close of our exploration today with the fifth agreement. We thank everyone for joining us today. And we invite you to come back next week when we expand on yet another spiritual exploration. So my treasured takeaway for today is this: if you commit to the 5 agreements, be impeccable with your word, don't take anything personally, don't make assumptions, always do your best, and number 5, be skeptical and learn to listen, you'll be able to uncover who you really are and live an easier and happier life. And that's what it's all about, is enjoying your life. So let's take a deep breath in and make the transition into part of this time together where we support our center financially. You'll see a blue button directing your donation on the screen, or you may call the center directly. We're very blessed by all of you that support our center. And as you choose to make a donation today, we welcome it gratefully. We have got a great, absolutely great live stream lineup this week. So first, mark your calendars for 10 a.m. every day. Tomorrow, Thursday, for conversations with Reverend Charles and practitioner emeritus Linda Watson, who is really an amazing woman. Friday, join Reverend Charles for more Life on Love. Saturday's guided meditation at 10 a.m. features one of us, one of these amazing new ministers. And Sunday, join anytime after 6 a.m. for our weekly service and spirit boost. And guess what? That's not all. Mark your calendars for this Tuesday, September 22nd at 6:30 p.m. for our inaugural monthly restorative intention circle. If you love the power of 8, this takes you to an even deeper level of focus, both giving and receiving directed energy around both a powerful community intention and your individual intention for your life. Joining is easy, no registrations required. Either click on the website banner or on the e-blast you received, and you will receive again as a reminder on Monday. Wednesday, join us at 8 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. for the Power of 8 intention circles. And join our very popular Getting to Know You community for the Social 8, our CSL Palm Desert social rendezvous for the week, from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. on Thursdays. And also don't forget about our virtual prayer room. It's every Sunday beginning at 11 a.m. and our practitioners offer free confidential prayer right after our scheduled service. And if you want to receive prayer, simply go to the link on our website. And I believe there is one more jewel, and Dale's going to announce it for us.
Thank you, Reverend Gail. I am starting a class on Tuesday, September 29th, and it is called Spiritual Resilience. And I'm going to be teaching you for 6 weeks how to find your inner power and your inner strength to walk through any time in your life, whether it's an individual experience that's challenging or something that's more global. And we're really going to anchor into meditation, a little bit of teaching, interacting with others, some journaling for a very fulfilling experience. And I know by the end of 6 weeks, you will be feeling so strong and resilient that you can do anything no matter what. You can either register through the office, or you can, there's a flyer that's on our revolving banner page on our website, or you can send an email to me at revdaleo@gmail.com, and I'll give you all of the instructions on how to register. It'll be a virtual class, of course, and I would love to have you join us. Thank you, Reverend Gail, for giving me that opportunity.
Reverend Dale, how exciting. So now that you've got a full glimpse of this absolutely amazing week ahead at the center, please join me in our closing benediction. And thank you very much for being a part of this Sensational 6 community. Something wonderful, simply wonderful, is happening through me right now. It is this thing called life. This life is my mind. It is my body, and this life is all of my affairs. I think it, I feel it, and I accept it. Just the way that it is, and just the way that it isn't. And I know that I am never alone. Spirit is right where I am, and I know that Spirit is right where each person here is. I only have to look within at any moment in time to know that I'm guided, I'm sustained, I'm empowered by a presence that expresses its love through my love in this world. In deepest gratitude, I intend to live my life staying open to the truth, staying open at the top, so that everything that I do and say and think honors this presence of love within. Please join me in saying, and so it is.
We love you all.